Hello, class 9. Today we're going to start with the poem The Road Not Taken from Beehive. So let's get started. Now, this poem is written by Robert Frost, and see, the poet is telling us, the poem is very small, but it's giving a very deep meaning as to what different choices we make in our life and what impact do they have on our life in the coming future. Okay, so two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it brent in the undergrowth. So that means the poet is telling us that he's standing at a point where a single road is getting diverged into two roads, right? And he's standing at this junction. The poet is standing here, and where is he walking through? He's walking through a forest, and the yellow refers to the autumn season of the year. Okay, so, and sorry I could not travel both. He feels very sad, that being one traveler, he cannot travel both the roads. So long I stood. He stands there for a very long time thinking. And what is he doing? He's just looking down on one of the roads as far as he can see. But what eventually happens? The road that bends and disappears into the undergrowth. That means all the bushes and the plants, or all the vegetation, you can say, of the forest into which the road disappears. Okay, so let's move on to the next stanza, the stanza 2. Now what does the stanza 2 says? Then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps a better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. So what does he do? He just takes the other one. That means he decides to take the other road. Just as fair, it looked as good as any other road, maybe even better. Why? Perhaps it was giving a very better claim, because it was really more greener, and it was grassier, and it wanted people to walk on it, to trample on it, but when he looks closer, you're right, though as for the passing there, I mean, he really wishes that more and more people could have walked on this road, so at least I could have decided whether should I choose this or the first one. They had warned them really about the same. Now what does this line means? It means when he just takes a very deep insight into both the roads, he looks closer, he realizes that both the roads were actually similar. There wasn't any much striking difference between the two, because he says that both had been used about the same. They looked almost similar. Okay, so let's move on to the third stanza. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. Now that morning, he's standing again at the same junction. He's looking at both the roads, and both the roads, seemed very equal to him. Because, in the morning, more and more of the leaves start falling from the trees, and, they look actually exactly the same, because they are covered with the fresh leaves that had fallen from the trees around. Okay, that's why they look equal. In leaves no step had trodden black. So see, till now no one had walked on them as yet. Now the poet tells himself that he'll come back. He's going to keep the first for some other time, and he'll come back one day and take the other road, right? Yet knowing how way leads on to way. See, deep down in his heart, he knows that once you take one particular path, or you just travel along that direction, you usually don't come back, because how one road leads on to the other, right? So but he's saying that he might try and come back to this point and take up the other road, the first one which he has left, because he's being one traveler. He's to choose only one out of the two. Okay, now moving on to the last stanza, bachcho. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now he says, in the future, I'm going to tell the story with a sigh. A sigh is a heaviness on your heart, or it could be a sigh of relief, right? So the poet is opening the interpretation to the readers. He'll say that he took the road. Which one? That was less traveled by. Okay, the same line comes here, na? Two roads diverged in a wood, which we already have covered in the first stanza. So he says that I'm going to tell them that I took the road which was less traveled by, which was less explored by the people, and that has made all the difference in his life. So that means the poet is very adventurous. This is something which usually the question comes in your exam, and they ask that what kind of a nature the poet had, or what nature does the poem reflects about the poet, right? So this shows that how small choice can shape your entire journey, your entire future. Okay, so this is where the poem ends. I hope the poem has been explained to you beautifully, and you have understood the deeper meaning of the lines. Right now, see, we have these two lines. I just wouldn't want you to focus on these two lines, because it's he's actually a kind of a person who has chosen the road which fewer people had taken, right? Less common or less popular, and because of that, his life has turned out differently. So the line is actually a metaphor for making the bold choices in your life, and it is actually representing the uncertainty of the life. I mean, he wasn't sure at that point of time when he selected the other road and leaving the first one. But usually what we do, we just follow the path which is being followed by everyone else, right? But he was a unique person. He wanted to explore different choices. He wanted to be more adventurous, and that changes life in a very big way. See, now we have two interpretations out of these last two lines. What is it? That first, he's happy with his choice, correct, because it gave him a very unique path. And second, he is a little regretful. He's feeling sorry, he's feeling unhappy, and he's saying it with a sigh. Okay, so that means Robert Frost is leaving us the poem as an open-ended to interpret that which is the part what makes the poem very relatable to the readers. Okay, so I hope, children, you have understood the poem very beautifully. And now, to get back to the poetic devices, I think we should cover up the poetic devices right away. So let's get started with the poetic device. Now, as the very first device we'll talk about is symbolism. Symbolism here is being signified by the word road in the poem, because this is symbolifying the choices, the opportunities in the life, right? So this is your first poetic device. Again, this yellow wood, to refer again, yellow wood is also symbolizing the time of change, right? Because the season changes with the time, with the passage of time. So we have two examples of symbolism. One is the road and another is the yellow wood. Now, coming on to the second poetic device, that is imagery. See, imagery is something that you can just create a visual in your mind. You paint a picture in a reader's mind, and this is how the poet has done very beautifully by saying the first line, the two roads diverged. See, this is how we can picturize that you're standing in a junction in the forest, and the two roads are going one in the other, one in the one direction and the other in the other direction. Correct? Okay. Now, the next is, I'll just write it down here, it's repetition. Now, as I mentioned to you, the first line of the poem, two roads diverged in a yellow wood, is again repeated back in the last stanza again. Now, what is this? This is actually the emphasis on repetition of these two lines is showing the importance of the choices, correct? Now, the fourth device is alliteration. Alliteration, we all know, is the repetition of the consonant sound at the beginning of the words. Now, let's check out for the alliteration. See, here we have alliteration. This is wanted wear. So, the word W and W, again, we have a repetition of the consonant sound. And I guess we have to figure it out a little more and search for some other alliterations here. Just a second, let me just check. Okay. Okay, yeah, somewhere ages and ages. Again, we have a repetition of the the similar sound. Okay, now moving on to the next device, beta, the fifth device that we're going to use here is enjambment. I hope that you know the meaning of enjambment. If not, then I'll just let you know. It means, that a one line is flowing into the other and it is going without any pause. That means it's very natural, it's very rhythmical, it's very thoughtful. So from would we move on to both, stood and could. Until here, we didn't find any of the pauses, no full stops, no commas. Okay. Now, the sixth thing, see, these are basically, the devices that we have covered, the five devices, right? One is symbolism, one is imagery, one is repetition, one is alliteration, and the last is enjambment. Now, children, when we talk about the tone of the poem, right, or the tone of the writer, you usually get a question in the paper, in the exams, they would ask you that what is the tone of the poem, and you'll be given 4 choices. So if you have to write the tone of the poem, it's going to be very, very reflective, it's very thoughtful, ठीक है. It's actually leaving a deep, interpretation in the minds of the readers as to what would have happened, to the poet if he had chosen the first or if he had chosen the second route. And again, it's slightly regretful because in the end we get to know, na, because he's saying with a sigh. Again, we can go with this particular tone as well, because the last stanza is telling the line with a sigh. Correct. So here, we end up the explanation of the poem. I hope that you understand the poem very well. Keep watching my videos for more interesting explanation of your lessons. Till then, goodbye, good luck, and don't forget to subscribe my channel. And one thing more, if you want the Hindi explanation of the poem, even I'll do that for you guys, but you need to comment and tell me if you require that. I'll be more than happy to do it for you. Thank you, bachcho.